Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. Welcome back to Feminine Roadmap Podcast, the podcast that helps you navigate the challenges and the changes of midlife and empowers you to live a more vibrant second half. If you find yourself on YouTube today watching us, please remember to subscribe and ring that bell so that you don't miss any more of this inspiring conversations. And if you're on a podcast platform, please subscribe, rate, and share this conversation, because today we are going to be talking about finding joy in retirement. My guest reinvented herself in her retirement years, and she realized she could help others find joy and purpose after retirement and help them rediscover themselves. My guest today is Lee Gale Gruen. She's an actress. She's an author of Reinventing Yourself in Your Retirement Years. Find joy, purpose, and excitement after you retire. Lee Gale, thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. I'm excited to learn about your story. What led you to this path of finding your own joy and then helping others?
Well, I retired and I had been a probation officer for 37 years. And when I retired at the age of 60, I was lost. I had no idea what to do with myself. A friend mentioned some classes for seniors, so I went and checked it out and somehow signed up for an acting class. I thought it just was a play reading class and discussion. I didn't know it was an acting class. Had I known, I never would have signed up. I had terrible stage fright. And that first day when someone asked me to read with them, and I seriously considered walking out of the class, when I realized I was supposed to stand up in front of an audience, all the classroom. But I started reading and I became so engrossed in my role. I forgot about everyone staring at me and judging me. And I was hooked on acting. Yeah. So that did it. A few weeks later, my mother died, and my father, who was 85, was just lost without her. And I invited him to come to the acting class with me, and he loved it. So we attended together for 3 years, and I wrote all the scenes that he and I performed in the acting class showcases. And then I wrote a memoir about it. Here's my cover. Adventures with Dad, a father and daughter's journey through a senior acting class. And I put in all of the scenes that he and I performed in the acting class showcases that I wrote. So that's how I rediscovered myself.
Isn't that interesting that you rediscovered yourself doing something that you wouldn't have on purpose chosen to do?
That's exactly right. And that's one of the lessons that I learned. After several years and giving book talks about my memoir, people would ask me, tell me they were lost, ask me what they should do. And I realized I had something to give back to the community, that I had found a new life for myself. And so I wrote a second book. And this is the book. And it's to help reinventing yourself in your retirement years, find joy, excitement, and purpose after you retire. And that is, I have all kinds of ideas and suggestions on how people might even figure out what they want to do when they retire. People are lost. People are traumatized when they retire. So I have all kinds of ideas on how you might figure out what even interests you, then where to even go to find it, how to find it. And one of the ideas is just what you said. Don't just stick to the few things you've done all your life. Try something new, something you've never done before. I never would have tried acting. It's just that I accidentally enrolled in a class that I didn't know was an acting class, and found an entire new life and passion for myself. So try lots of different things.
It's interesting how we're not quite prepared, are we? Like, no one prepares you for that season of life. It's kind of like the assumption is, oh, you'll just retire and I don't know, right off into the sunset. And some people are retiring earlier too.
Yes, that's true. We don't usually plan for what we're going to do. All of the books and information that I could find when I retired, when I was so lost. I mean, I just, now what do? I had no job to go to. My kids were grown. They didn't need me. Now what am I going to do? And I was still vibrant and, had energy and enthusiasm. The books just weren't out there on what to do. They books and information for seniors on the majority deal with retirement. I mean, retirement income, which is important. I'm not diminishing that, but health issues. What about things to make me, feel worthwhile, vibrant? Do I have a purpose in life, or do I just, sit in a rocking chair and read a book all day? I mean, that just didn't do it for me. So you're very right. People are not prepared for this, for all this free time and for this second act of their life.
That free time, we've spent a large portion of our life being told what to do with our time, really, especially if you work, right?
Right.
When to clock in, when to take lunch, when to take your breaks, when to go home. And then when you get home, then you have to make a dinner, do the things,
Exactly.
and you're on a hamster wheel for so much of your life. That must be a huge adjustment to go from that kind of focus and it is purpose. I think even if you're not crazy about your job, it gets you something to get out of bed for.
You're completely right about that. I had a schedule. I had deadlines. I had all kinds of things that people were dependent on me. I was writing reports for judges. I was interviewing people. The day I retired, all that stopped.
Mm-hmm.
That was a major part of my identity. Mother was a major part of my identity. Well, mother had, it's of course still existed, but not in the same way. My kids were adults and grown and out of the house. So when my job ended, that identity was gone. Nobody even asked me, what do you do? I mean, I didn't do that anymore. So it was devastating. I mean, my first day, and I even write about this in my memoir, my first day, I was just literally so traumatized. I had to verbally say to myself, because I wanted to go from one room to another, okay, you put one foot in front of the other. Here I was, efficient and this and that, and nobody needed it anymore. So it was pretty scary and pretty awful.
What you just said, nobody needed it anymore. That feels like the heart of the issue is you go from feeling needed and feeling necessary to something outside of yourself. And I've talked to other women who felt that invisibility once they retired. Even if they talked to those people that they worked with before, there was a chasm that existed. And it was like they felt like they were in this no man's land. And so I'm wondering, did you have that same experience? Because you have coworkers and you have all these people that you have relationships with. But when I've noticed, when you remove yourself from an environment, it's like you're removed from that environment. It's very rare to stay connected on a level that feels the same.
Completely. I mean, when you retire, you don't really interact with those people anymore. You don't have any commonalities. You don't have work to discuss. Those people, not that you can't make friends and see them outside of work, but even when you see them outside of work, if they are still working, they're talking work talk, about this interesting case or this or whatever, and you're kind of the odd man out.
Mm-hmm.
That's again why I wrote my book. This book, Reinventing Yourself in Your Retirement Years. Need to find something different, a new tribe. I think you used that word to me earlier today. You need to find another tribe. You need to find another interest, a passion. One of the things I say about in my book is, and people ask or have said to me, because I've lectured on this a lot, I call it senior reinvention. And people have asked me, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I like. How do I even find something? Because I talk about finding something to be passionate about, to, as you said earlier, have a reason to get out of bed, get dressed, get out of the house.
Yeah.
It's so easy to sink into depression and just pull the covers up over your head. That's the easy road. So one of the things I suggest to people in my book, how to find something that would grab them, that would really interest them, is think about things that have always interested you. What articles do you always read in the newspapers or in magazines? Which ones do you always flip or never pass by? One of the things that I found when I started thinking that way was science. I always read the science articles. I never realized, I never thought about it. But before I got into acting, or actually while I was in acting, another thing I did was contact I lived at that time in Los Angeles, California, and the world famous La Brea tar pits was right near where I lived. And I contacted them. Somehow somebody mentioned something that they had docents. And now that I was an actress, I had overcome my stage fright. I contacted them, and sure enough, they were looking for volunteers to lead tour groups around the La Brea tar pits. Well, now that I no longer had stage fright, now that I wanted to perform in front of people, that was a combination of, performance, leading groups, science that I loved, and I got involved in that also. So that's, do you always like music? Maybe you can pursue something in a musical vein, even though that wasn't your career. Or you can do something that you had been trained in. For example, if you'd been a teacher, maybe you want to start tutoring students privately. That's something you can do. But don't forget to look at those things you've never done before. You too could become an actor like I did, or something else.
Yeah. I think a lot of us lose sight of our inner kind of passions. We dismiss the things we're good at, or we've been in one role for so long it's so hard to see ourselves in a different place. But in my mind, we really have been reinvented several times in the first half of our lives, right? We were children, then you go to junior high, that's another reinvention. Then you get to high school, and then you get to college, right? And then you don't have college and you're not a student anymore, and you become this kind of contributor to society. So we really have been through different iterations of ourselves. It could be marriage, parenting, building a business, changing jobs, changing careers, So I feel like somehow we've sometimes look at retirement as this other animal, but really it's just the next step in this process of change and reinvention that we've already been on most of our lives. Wouldn't you agree?
I think you're really right. I hadn't looked at it that way because I've been focusing so much on the senior reinvention, but you're right. Life forces us, or moves us into new roles. We have many roles in life, and some of them come at later times in our life, such as parenting. You suddenly become a parent. That totally changes your life.
Whether you want it to or not.
Yeah, exactly. So as we move along the scale of life, we are forever reinventing ourselves, either deliberately or because we are forced into the role. I think one of the difficult things as a senior and in retirement is that we are older and perhaps not as resilient to do so. And we have to, I'm going to say use the word force, but we have to motivate. Maybe that's a better. We have to self-motivate to do so. As I said earlier, it's so easy to wake up in the morning and then pull those covers back over your head. Oh, I don't want to get out there. I don't know what to do. I don't know anybody. Yeah, somebody told me about the senior citizens center, but I have to go there all by myself and I don't know anyone. Of course, as a mature senior, you're not going to admit that out loud. You're not going to admit it to yourself even. But it is hard to walk into a new situation where you don't know anyone. And especially when you walk in and everybody else is socializing. They know each other. And you're the guy who's, the new kid on the block. No one knows, you don't know anyone. No one knows you. No one's talking to you. That is very, very hard. I've even had people at my lectures say to me, I have an elderly parent and I can't get them to go to such and such a program that I found out about. I think that they would enjoy it. But when I bring it up to them, they refuse to go. Do you have any suggestions? And I say just what I said right now. People are frightened to go by themselves. You can't just say to somebody, okay, here it is, do this, and then walk off. They're not going to do it. They're intimidated. They won't admit it, but they are intimidated. So what I said to this person who asked that question, I said, go with your father the first time, or maybe the first few times, until he feels comfortable, until maybe he has spoken to somebody else and gotten to know somebody, so that when he does go by himself, he already knows somebody there. So that's an idea for children of seniors.
Yeah.
To take them by the hand. Sometimes you need to take somebody by the hand. I hope my book does that. Let me show the cover again. This is the purpose of my book. It is to take people by the hand and help guide them. It's a guide. It's a self-help book to guide them on how to find activities, pursuits, things to do that will give them joy, excitement, purpose. It's a guide. So it also tells, not just activities, but and how to find all kinds of suggestions on how to find them. And all the way from, of course, I mentioned the internet, but a lot of people at this age are not tech savvy. And you say to somebody, just Google it. And they kind of look at you blankly. And then they don't admit that they don't understand. They're not going to admit that. Sometimes they might say, well, I'm not really good with the internet. It's my computer's I'm not really good at that. Then as a final thing, I say, well, ask your children to help you. Well, my kids are busy. Well, how about a kid across the street? Well, I don't know him that well. So here's my final suggestion. Go to the library. The librarian will help you get on the computer, will help you how to Google something that you finally figured out. Gee, I like science. What's in my neighborhood that I can do something? Like I volunteered at the La Brea Tar Pits. Well, I happened to live in Los Angeles, California at that time. What about if you live in a small town? What's in my neighborhood that I can go and find something of this thing that interests me, music or science or or art or whatever. Where do I go?
Mm-hmm.
So that's your final place. If you have nobody to help you and you don't know how to do it yourself, go to the library and ask the librarian to help you to find it.
That's such a good resource, isn't it? I love the
Oh,
library.
yeah.
it, it's, I think there's patience involved in this process. If you are the child of a parent, an adult child of a parent, you know, yes, we may be in a busier season of life if we're helping a parent, but it feels like it's not completely reverse roles, but it kind of is. You know, when you did it for your father, it's like we take them by the hand. We're taking them to their first day of school all over, right? Instead of them taking us. It's a very similar experience of, you know, we're taking them somewhere that they're anxious about going. And we're, you know, making sure, are you okay? Do you need anything? So it's a bit of a role reversal. So I think that from an adult child of a parent, that can be an unusual navigation for some people, depending on their relationship to step, because you can't tell your parents what to do. It's different than being the parent of a child, but you are doing what's good for them. Do you have any suggestions? How did you navigate that with your own father, so that we can kind of see? Because maybe not everyone has a relationship that would necessarily kind of make that an easy transition.
What I did, and I mentioned earlier that I got into the acting class as soon as I realized I absolutely loved it. And I had been telling my father about it. My mother was sickly, and my father was her caretaker.
Mm.
And I was in the class maybe 2 weeks, and my mother died. And my father, again, I mentioned earlier, was just absolutely devastated. They'd been married for over 60 years. Now, my father was a naturally outgoing person. And it just, I don't know how it dawned on me that he would enjoy the acting class. I mean, I just thought about it. I actually, as I write in my book, I just blurted it out. It just came out of nowhere. Daddy, come to my acting class with me. And the idea was, you know, just to get him out of the house. He was moping around. And no, I don't want to. No, that's okay. And I just kept gently bringing it up. You're right. You cannot tell your parent what to do, but you can gently suggest it. And I became such a pain that I think he finally said yes, just to shut me up. And I said to him, look, we'll just go one time. We'll sit in the back of the room. You don't have to do anything. You're just going to go and be with me. And that's what he finally agreed. All right. You know, he just didn't have the strength to resist me. And I was gentle, but persistent. And we went and we sat in the back of the room. And the teacher, you know, she was a very lovely person. And when we walked in, she said, oh, hi, Lee Gale. Who have you brought with you? And I said, oh, this is my father, Marvin. Oh, hi, Marvin. And then we sat down and the class proceeded. And she would periodically call up students to do improvisational acting. So all of a sudden she called on my father. Marvin, you come up, and Doris, you come up, and you're going to be a couple of, you know, Marvin, you'll be the judge, and Doris, you're going to be the defendant, you know. And I thought, oh my goodness, my father is not going to like this. And I write about this in my book, also in my memoir. And I looked at him before I could say anything to him. He was up and walking down the aisle to get to the front because he'd been watching other improvs. And, you know, and he got up there. He was loving it. He was into it. He was absolutely loving it. And on our way home, I thought this was going to be going to the class with just once, maybe go one more time. On our way home, he said to me, So, what time are you picking me up next week for our class? So when you have an elderly parent, you're an adult and you have a senior parent who is depressed, who doesn't want to do anything, and you make suggestions and they don't want to follow it. They're when a person is depressed, they cannot get their act together to do anything. Be persistent, be gentle, be persistent, bring home information for them, literature that they can look at. If they don't want to look at it with you, leave it on the table. As they're making their way around the house, they might glance at it. Bring it up again a week later. Bring it up on the internet and show it to them. Find somebody that here's an idea too. This didn't have to do with my parent, but it was a great idea. It was when my son was a teenager and he was kind of lost, and I found a youth group that I thought he might enjoy. Well, of course, the worst person in the world to suggest anything to a teenager is the parent, right? So I called the youth group leader and I said, "Oh, my son absolutely will not, come. I've suggested it to them. Could you call him and talk to him about it?" And the group leader said, "I have a better idea. I'll have one of the girls in the group call him." And she did. And he comes in one day, "Mom, this girl just called me about this group and maybe I will go." So that's another idea. If you have a place that you think your parent might be interested in, have somebody from that place call him. And then he's got a contact. Mm-hmm. And you can go with him the first time, but he's got, he walks in, "Oh, hi, Bill, is Bill here? Hi, Bill, I'm Marvin. Yeah. You talked to me on the phone." So these are some ideas.
It's interesting to think about our parents differently, isn't it? Because it's another role that we've played all of our lives and how they've helped us, or maybe the general role is our parents are helping us, they're guiding us, and now we're in this unusual place of guiding our parents, and that gives us something to, when we get to that place, we can take that learning journey and apply it to our own lives. Like, what did I think my parent needed?
Exactly.
What did I think this person might have needed, and taking it in for ourselves? Because you said you started the acting class at 65 and you had never done anything like that. Is that correct?
That is correct. I started at age 60, right when I retired. Okay. And I had never, ever had no aspirations to become an actor. Would never have gone to the class had I realized that it was an acting class and that we had to stand up in front of people and perform. Oh my goodness. And so I fell into it. It was sheer accident. And I discovered something that completely changed my life. Completely. I mean, I went on to become a paid professional actress. I had an agent. I got headshots. I went on auditions. It was so exciting. I loved it. And I also loved overcoming my stage fright that had controlled me all my life. That was very exciting. Well, the minute I overcame my stage fright, it's like, okay, where's a place for me to talk? Where's a place for me to perform? I had to make up for all this lost time, So I found something that was such a passion for me. I couldn't get enough of it. It was like a drug. I talk about that in my memoir also. It was like a drug, only better because it was legal and free, So if you can find, and your passion doesn't have to be what I did. There can be all kinds of passions. I have an entire chapter on my Reinventing Yourself in Your Retirement book on volunteering. And that can be very, very gratifying. I told you I volunteered at the La Brea Tar Pits. Well, another volunteer job I did that I loved was I volunteered with my dog at a hospital, going and meeting patients who requested a dog visit. And we would chat, and the dog, I'd put her up on their bed and they'd pet her. And for that moment, those 5 minutes, they forgot about why they were in the hospital, and they were just talking about their dog at home that they couldn't wait to get back to, things like that. So there are all kinds of, and I have in the book lots and lots of ideas on things that you can check out that might interest you. So, you know, there's so much out there for retirees, and people don't realize it, and they don't even know where to start. And so I call it baby steps. You have to help them, take them through baby steps. There are people who, volunteer in gift shops at hospitals. We see retirees there. I have a whole section on jobs that retirees can get if they don't have enough money to help to support themselves in their retirement. Part-time jobs. We've seen clerks in drugstores and grocery stores who are seniors, obviously seniors. I have a whole list of places that, seniors are appropriate, apartment managers, dog walkers, all kinds of things to earn some extra money.
I think that there's a mindset that needs to take place. Can you talk a little bit about the shift that you had to make mentally from that work world, if you will, to this second act of now what?
That was really hard, because when you talk about the shift, you're talking about changing identity. We've talked earlier about the many identities that we have in our lives: parent, sibling, child of someone, worker, all kinds of identities, spouse, all kinds of identities that we have. And when you have been a full-time worker, as I was, and as so many people are, that is a major, major identity, one of your biggies. I mean, you spend, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week there for years, for decades. And when that disappears, you suddenly, you still feel, oh, hey, I was a probation officer. Okay, what do you do? Oh, I'm a probation officer. Oh, no, wait a minute. No, I'm not. That's your new mindset. Your first reaction is, that's what I am. And then you have to go, oh, no, I'm not that anymore. Well, if I'm not that, what am I? What am I? And that's pretty shocking. That was pretty shocking to me. Gee, that door has closed, and it closes abruptly. I retired, and boom, that's disappeared out of my life. 37 years of my life. That's all in the past and gone. So to change your mindset, to make that shift, if you can find something to segue into, that will help you tremendously. It took me a while. I tried other things. I did a little volunteer work. I told you I volunteered with my dog. I did a few other volunteer things. I met friends for lunch. I went shopping. They weren't satisfying long term. I needed something with purpose. I needed something that grabbed me. I needed something that, I went to sleep thinking about and woke up thinking about. And when I discovered acting, boy, that was it. So again, as I said, your thing, my advice to people is, your thing doesn't have to be acting like I did, but you want to check out what's out there, try different things, try, a variation of what you did during your life, such as a teacher becoming a tutor. Put yourself out there and try to find something that excites you. Now, the excitement might be because you meet other people who are doing something similar, and that's exciting. I know a lot of people have joined organizations and they get on committees and things like that, and they enjoy the camaraderie of the other people. And that's exciting to them. And they go home and they do their work to prepare for the committee. And that could be it. So, there, again, in my book, I talk about all those potential things to do. And if you're, the out there charismatic type, I have a whole idea of things with that personality. I also try to gear this to the personality of the person. What if you're the quiet, retiring type and you're not a people person, and that's an uncomfortable situation for you? Well, I have a whole list of things that you might try. And a friend of mine who's that kind of, or who was that kind of personality, he's gone now, but he found a wonderful volunteer job in the Museum of Natural History. And he was in the bone room cataloging ancient bones that they had in drawers that they didn't have people to catalog. And that's kind of a by yourself job, but it was fascinating to him. So, you want to find something that matches your personality type.
That's a really good point, because sometimes the work that we've done wasn't necessarily something that we chose. For some people, their career they fell into as well, right? They might have gone to school for one thing and then worked in a completely different field. And I'm thinking about words like curiosity, just giving that, just be curious. Try a few things. Experimentation comes to mind. Like, not thinking in terms of such concrete, like I have to find something today, right? Like it's a process of checking things out.
Yeah, I think that is correct. That's the idea of try lots of different things. That's what that is. And I like what you said about, I want to pick up on that about, you may have gone to school and studied one thing and then you fell into a totally different field. That's something you might explore. If you studied something in school that grabbed you, but somehow that's way in the past, you might revisit that and see about getting involved in something along those lines. This is bringing to mind a friend of mine who, she was in grammar school and she studied violin. And that was the end of the violin. Well, as a senior and as a retiree, she revisited violin and started taking violin lessons. So I had an uncle who was a postman. Remember the mailman who didn't have the little rolling bag? He did it with the strap on the shoulder kind of mailman.
Yes.
And I write about my Uncle Barney in my book as an example. When Uncle Barney retired, he took up piano. He took piano lessons. He had never done piano in his life. And he started taking piano. He plunked away, and he was never going to get, accomplished, but he was enjoying it. He also took up painting. And his paintings were, simple painting. Everybody in the family had a painting from Uncle Barney, on their wall. And he was having, these things grabbed him. He tried different things, and those couple of things grabbed him, and so he stuck with them.
You said something that really I thought is profound, which is, it doesn't have to be mastery, does it?
No.
It doesn't have to be, we're not tackling this accomplishment. We're finding joy. We're finding the thing that lights us up.
I like that word, that phraseology, lights us up. That's great. You don't have to become an expert.
There it is.
You don't have to become an expert at it. When I became an actress, I'm not a well-known actress. I'm a small actress. I've done lots of commercials, just a line or two. I've done a few things, on television, some theater. I'm not the lead, I'm not the main star. And that's fine. And I'm satisfied with that. That's another thing. Be satisfied with what you've accomplished. The reality is, at this age, you are not most likely going to be the star, but you don't have to be. You don't have to be. Just find something that excites you, and be okay with that. That's the goal, not the particular activity that you find, but the exciting part of it. That is the goal.
Someone said to me once, it's like, when you find a loose thread on your clothing and you pull it and it kind of unravels, right? I feel like that's this process. We're following loose threads, sort of.
That's an interesting analogy. Why not? Why not? We don't have anything to prove at this age. You want to enjoy. The process is supposed to be enjoyable. It's not supposed to be competitive like our younger years. It is supposed to be relaxing, enjoyable, exciting, purpose-driven. The point is to realize that you still have plenty of life in you, that you have worth. That's another thing I talk about in my book. We have worth at this age. You talked about something earlier about people feeling invisible. I talk a lot about that. I also lecture publicly. I've been a guest speaker at many, usually to this age demographic, retirees, seniors, and I've spoken at many retirement communities throughout the United States. And I speak a lot about worth. Do we as seniors have worth? Or are we just, cows, old cows who have been put out to pasture? Well, I don't want to be an old cow put out to pasture. And why should I be? I have a lot still to contribute. I have a lot of excitement and energy in me. And we have worth. You have value and you have worth. Your thoughts, your opinions are valuable. If you are with groups of people who ignore you, because after all, you're this old person, you've got, wrinkles or gray hair or whatever it is that makes you look old, then don't go with those people. Don't hang around with that kind of people. I've realized that the places that I'm most comfortable with and the friends that I'm most comfortable with are people like me, people who are seniors and vibrant. That's my particular tribe. I've heard other seniors say, I don't want to just be with a bunch of old people. I like young people. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing, wherever you are comfortable, there's nothing wrong with that. But just always remember, you have value and you have worth.
So, Lee Gale, we've reached our time, but I would love to have you give 3 takeaways, just 3 things that you want people to anchor into from this conversation from your heart. What would those 3 things be?
Well, I'm probably repeating myself.
And that's okay.
Oh, okay. I want people to know that there is a new life in retirement. There's so much to do, and all you have to do is be able to find it. And my I guess mission is to help people find it, because I went through it myself. So I've figured out how to find a new life in retirement. I want people to know that there is a way to do that. that's another mission, to help them figure out how to do it, to help them figure out what to do, what is interesting to them, and then how to do it. Because no one told me. I had to do it the hard way. And that's why I wrote a book about how to help people do it. Because I wish there had been such a book for me when I retired. I want to mention that I have a website. Can I mention
please.
that? My website tells all about my 2 books, tells about my acting. It tells about, and I'm a blogger. I also have a free blog. So my website is leegalegruen.com, spelled like my name, which you see on the screen, LeegaleGruen.com. My blog is the same title as my book, Reinventing Yourself in Your Retirement Years, and it is free. And that link, that website is my name, leegalegruen.wordpress, WORDPRESS.com. My 2 books are available on Amazon.com. The first is Adventures with Dad, a father and daughter's journey through a senior acting class. It's a memoir. The second book, my self-help book, is Reinventing Yourself in Your Retirement Years. Find joy, excitement, and purpose after you retire.
Lee Gale, I want to thank you so much for reaching out and offering your expertise and your passion. And I love the clarity with which you share your message. I love your message. It is something that I want more people to really become connected to. And you embody that idea. You're not just talking about it, you're living it out. You're being the example. And that's so inspirational. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Gina. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Friends, today, if you are on YouTube and you just look right down below, you are going to find the links that Lee Gale shared. But if you're on the podcast, head on over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 299. I will have all of the links there for you. And you will also find that you can join my tribe. And I send out periodic encouraging emails, so please feel free to join that as well. Today I've been speaking with Lee Gale Gruen. She's an author, an actor, a blogger, and a woman who is inspiring people to live their second act with vibrancy and passion and joy and purpose. And the one thing that she said that I want to really drill down into is you have worth and you have a purpose. You have a reason to be here. If you're still on this side of the soil, my friend, you have something you can be doing, something that will bring you joy, and you contribute to the world when you live into those purposes that come into your life. So if you feel a little bit lost, reach out to Lee Gale, look at those links, read her blog, and if you have a parent who needs this encouragement, gently share these resources with them as well, because you are special, precious, unique, and needed in this world. And don't ever forget that. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, for being a part of this conversation. Please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any more of these inspiring conversations, as I have more headed your way. Thank you so much, friends. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.